No, that will fit a stock 80 millimeter throttle body, or you can use a ported throttle body as long as it's a stock pattern throttle body. Like Modern Muscle makes a ported throttle body. I believe I think it's Fastman makes one as well. They should work with both of those, and they do work for 2013 and up throttle bodies as well. I have a model that I have 3D printed that will work with a 92 millimeter Hellcat throttle body. So that's that'll be the next one out. So this way you can go all the way up to, basically all the way up to a 92 by basically changing a plug and putting it together. Yes?
The intake, we'll use a standard, like aftermarket, 4150 style.
Yeah, it's a 4150 flange. So if you want to run a fast system, you want to run a gold box, you want to run a Holly Dominator system, you can put a standard 4150 pattern throttle body right on top of it, and still run run all your injectors and stuff and everything else. And like I said, it will run most aftermarket rails. I only know of, I believe, one that it won't fit, or a stock set of 6.1 rails. That's usually the budget friendly. They're somewhat easy to get a hold of, and the only reason I say 6.1 is because the fuel crossover is at the rear.
Right.
So this way it's not trying to jump over the middle where the throttle body is.
Will you be offering rails for it?
I don't offer rails for it. Usually it's your choice of what you want to use, whether you want to use 4 fuel rails or.
Trying to see if you can plug it on the product.
Yeah, I'm just saying I don't offer my I just sell the physical parts.
But it'll fit any Gen 3 Hemi.
Right. I have the early rectangular port. I have it set up for. It will fit a 6.1 head, an Eagle head, a 6.4 head. I have customers. I had one with believe it or not, stuffed a 6.4 liter in a PT Cruiser. But he did it, and he used the intake manifold with a 90-degree elbow, and he was able to get it all through. I can only imagine what that must be in Burnout City. That's the only way to look at it. But I've got a customer that runs one in a pulling truck. He's got a little bit more work done to his, but he'll pull this $7 grand, and it still has the torque off the bottom that he needs to get it moving, and he's still got the horsepower on the top. So it's a pretty decent setup.
What else?
Maybe, so for a first time like basic swap for like a 72 body, is there like a year model or year size you recommend?
Depends on how basic I look at it. Hemi swaps work to people's tastes. Whatever your taste is, whatever you consider basic. Now, some people say basic, and they say, okay, I want carburetor, I want you know what I mean, a Hemi 6, I want this. Others say basic, and they mean, okay, well, I want to retain the stock injection system, but I want to use an aftermarket computer, or like I said, basically like for a first time type of a scenario.
Yeah. I look at like the fuel injection.
One of the easiest things to do is a crate motor and a factory PCM. That's
plug and play.
It's plug and play.
Yeah. Drop the tank out. So drop out the fuel tank, do the tank sink or the AEM or whoever's got an in tank. Run your fuel lines. So you'll need a higher pressure fuel line because now you're talking 58 pounds. So don't trust that'll crust your rubber. Run your new fuel line and power ground. It's 6 wires. The Mopar kit is 6 wires, so it's pretty impressive what they've got in a kit, and you can buy it as one part number, and it comes with it's a 2013 Challenger 5.7 motor. So basically, I think it's actually got a warranty on that.
It has a warranty on it. It is also programmable. The controller is not. The controller isn't locked, so you can get it. It'll plug and play. It'll run just like it does out of the box. If you want to tinker with it, hook up a tuner to it and play.
I have to change the full exhaust.
You'll have to make manual flanges. That's my cat. Hot potato. So you would have to, you'll have to make mating flanges. So you could stop at some point. But if you had like a 318 with like 2-inch exhaust, you're gonna need more. I'm running 2.5-inch pipe the 6.1. 2.5 is plenty. 2.25 is for a 5.7 is acceptable as factory for a Challenger. Now, when you get into higher applications, if you want to make it a little faster, I go 2.5-inch pipe. So if you're starting with slant 6 car, then no. But it really depends on where you're starting. I would do a drop-in Mopar kit. It's 6 wires. And it includes, I think it'll control a rad fan. So you run an electric rad fan, it'll control that. You can set your fan temperature, drop in a thermostat, make sure your rad fan's big enough. Your rad is big enough or new enough, and it's pretty simple. Really, that's the best way. And you've got a warranty on the motor.
You get a fan relay kit.
Yeah. It's the Mopar kits, actually, you can build on them. So if you decide at some point you want to put air conditioning on the vehicle, they sell different manifolds. So you can get the factory Ram manifolds. I think you can get the factory LX manifolds. You can get the Grand Cherokee SRT and the Car SRT manifolds. So the Grand Cherokee SRT and the Trackhawk ones are actually a big cast iron manifold. They're huge, but they'll support 700 horsepower in the Trackhawk. So I forgot to bring my set. I have a set at home that I was going to bring, and they're massive, but they'll flow 700 horsepower. It's kind of like the big, old school Mopar big block ones. They don't sweep up like the old Ramhorn ones, but they do support it, and they're hefty. You can buy them as a kit from Mopar. They make a kit. You can get a power steering kit, you can get an air conditioning kit. They'll sell you all the parts, and they'll be like, oh, I want an add-on kit. So you can add on to that Mopar crate. So really depending on where you go, you can start off with your 5.7 and your kit and everything, and then you can go, well, I've got power steering and I want this, so then they'll sell you a power steering pump. Now that's something else you'll have to look into. Power steering pumps are a high pressure. So I don't know if you have power steering. Look at the pressure. I actually was digging through some specs today, and if you're scrounging through a yard, which if you want simple, you're going to buy part numbers. So you're not going to go digging through a junkyard. But if you're going through a junkyard and you're looking for stuff, there are different power steering pumps. They look the same, but they have different pressures. Later model years, like 2008 cars, started having lower power steering pressures. Those are less likely to blow out the old steering boxes. The 2004, 2005, 2006 pumps are like 1700 PSI, and they will blow out. Like, I'm having trouble with the rack in that truck because of that. Yes?
The Cornet that we did that you helped us out with,
Yep.
we used a Heights street rod pressure regulator
Yep.
for.
So there are
basically
regulators.
just let it back to the return
Yeah.
side. And the original power box is still in the car. It works fine. It hasn't blown its guts out. And I mean, it should get.
There are kits. I've heard stories of steering boxes from like Grand Cherokees, like 94 Grand Cherokees being used in vehicles. It really depends, but just, if you're starting off with a kit, that's something to be aware of. If you have power steering, make sure the pressure is in the right ballpark, or else you're going to be replacing the steering box. That's probably one of the only, bigger challenges, but getting the thing running, it's not a big deal. I don't think you guys have any challenges with this kit.
Yeah, the kit steering box wise, I used an earlier motor with a truck accessory cover. So I have a 2003 to 2008 motor, and what I was actually able to do is I did enough of messing around with them, and I found a pump that actually had the regulator in it. A lot of them they're sealed on the end, like they're rolled over. I found one that actually was adjustable. So it was one of those deals where I took a couple of them apart. I found one that was adjustable. I took shims out of it to drop the pressure, and I put it back together. Now I know, was it Bushelon? They make a power steering pump with a lower pressure for the older steering boxes. And then the Heights kit, you can do that too. There's a couple of ways to skin that cat. But it's all doable.
Horsepower limits of the factory, automatic, 5.7, 6.1,
Automatic transmission wise?
automatic.
For a 545, not much.
So which horsepower, bottom end, or?
I was looking for one, too, like, what you guys want
Okay.
the transmission.
So, generally speaking, 5.7s are cast cranks. So unless you buy, there's a Mopar Performance cast crank, which is really a 6-1 crank. Generally speaking, we talk like 450, 500. I mean, they'll handle. It's just, if you bend one, you're done. They crack. They don't bend. 6-1, there's guys making the crank itself can handle 1,000 horsepower. You just got to make sure that everything stays straight. There's guys doing billet main caps. The rods are the weakest thing. They are powdered rods. The pistons are hyper-eutectic, so they're the weakest source. If you're going to make 1,000 horsepower out of one, you're talking rods and pistons. They go right out of the gate. So those are your challenges. It's really not that bad. We've been tinkering with these things for 10 years, more maybe, and it's enjoyable. I haven't blown up a motor. You haven't blown up a motor. You blew up a transmission.
I blew up transmission.
He blew up a transmission. He blew up at a 727. But this stuff's streetable. It's usable. I've been driving a Hemi for the past 12 years. Whether my Charger was a 5.7 car, and I ran it to a 12.8 at 104, and then took it apart and put heads and cam in it, and then ran like 12.3, and then got bored of it, and then put a 426 in it, and then I put a different 426 in it, and now it's ridiculous, but it's still reliable. I'll do a 400-mile road trip in it. We live in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and we've driven from there to Detroit for Woodward Dream Cruise. That sort of stuff, that's streetable. We drove here this afternoon really, in the Dakota, and there's not a problem. I mean, this stuff that's why we do these modern engines, that it starts up, it stops. I'm gonna put remote start in it, so that when I have the air conditioning, I'm gonna put remote start in it. I have heated seats and all that stuff in that thing. No, it's streetable, it's usable, it's more reliable, and as these things become more popular, and there are millions of these Hemis out there now, they're starting to populate junkyards. If you want to go pluck one out of there, or you want to buy it from from a Mopar crate, it's available. You can buy a Hell crate and you can drop it in. It comes with the same stuff. The 5.7 kit's out there, the 6.4 kit's out there, the Hell crate's out there, the Elephant kit is going to be, they're sold out. But but they're out there, and it's not hard to do. You can bolt it to a 727, you can bolt it to an RFE, you can bolt it to a NAG, you can pick your engine, pick your transmission. If you want to keep the standard, if you want to put it to keep an old 4-speed, you can do that. You can put it to a 727. You can do all these things. It's just, you've got to go, I want to do this. You want to look at, what do you need out of it? Do you want it to look factory? You can make it look factory. I put Joe's intake on it, and I put the old air cleaner on top of it, and most people won't even notice. But you can do all this stuff, and it's streetable. And you don't have to worry about, vapor lock anymore. You don't have to worry about points. You don't have to worry about ballast resistors. You don't have to drive it.
Those factory crate motors that are actually plug and play, when we're installing them in the older cars, we do have to change the oil pan, right?
Yes, you have to change the oil, but it depends on the setup that you've got as far as suspension goes.
Okay.
But if you keep the stock suspension, you would have to change the oil pan.
Okay. And what about the oil filter? I know those kind of hit the K member. I know the factory has those angled ones.
It depends.
Do those work, or you have to relocate?
There's actually a couple different. The standard one just goes up to the block. There's a 45-degree adapter you can use. There's now a 90-degree adapter that's on some of the newer trucks. And you can also, if any of those get in your way, you can block off where the filter goes, and there's 2 plugs in the side of all the blocks. You can use that for remote filter.
And we used to do that back then, but I mean, with the new angled filters, the adapters, so do those work with the old cars, or we still have to relocate them?
I would think it would work fine with it.
I actually have one of each. The A body is tight, so I had to run a remote because there's just not enough room. The motor mount tries to occupy the same space as the oil filter, so that one's actually run remote. On the B body, there was more than enough room for the 45, and you can run the 45-degree adapter. There's actually a short filter that you can put on there that actually gets you a little, we got one of them that fits.
Did you ever try the 91 on
90,
the
I've never tried it.
Oh, okay.
Not yet.
So that might work?
Maybe.
So there's something else I want to kind of mention. When we're talking oil filters, there are 2 different oil filters that are used on these things, or 2 different thread pitches. That's a tricky one because you can still use your old small block oil filters on a 2003 to 2007, and then in 2008 they went metric. And you can switch the little thread in there and make any of these new motors take your old oil filter. So if you run into a snag or anything, and you do need to do a relocation or anything like that, you can actually take that fitting out, and it's just thread locked in with green thread lock.
As long as
I had one engine at work that I had to take the fitting out, and it was green thread locked in enough that it just exploded. But
I destroyed one trying to get it out.
I had the torches on it.
out.
I had the torches on it. We actually sent the motor back. Yeah, it blew up my socket and everything. We ended up finding there was green thread lock all the way up and down. But the fitting does come out, and you can thread on your standard, your old school big block filter. So if you have the room, you can still run that big 2-quart filter or a 1.5-quart filter or whatnot. I do that on my Charger. I run the filter for a 69 Charger. But some of these new motors are coming with any of the 13 motors are going to come with a metric filter.
Okay.
But if you have a case of them, don't throw them out. You can, if you want to keep using that old filter, you can switch it over. So.
Thank you.
No problem. Anything else?
On accessories, I see some people switch to V-belt. Who makes those?
You could do a V-belt. I think with March, Bushlon. I don't know why actually, because I wouldn't want to. The Serpentine is a lot simpler, a lot stronger. I mean, I've seen guys lift motors with a Serpentine belt, so it's not going to spit a belt. It shouldn't spit a belt as long as an idler is on there correctly, or the supercharger in your case is not shredding them. There are different belt configurations, and that's probably something we should talk of. The trucks use different offsets. They stick the accessories out further forward than the cars. They set the accessories up top. So in the early trucks, the alternator and the air conditioning are up high. So if you want to run like a 6.1 intake, you can't really use that without relocating. The cars and Jeeps use it's a shorter, wider application, and on the Jeeps, because they're really, really narrow, so we're talking 2005 to 2010 Grand Cherokees and Commanders, the alternator is a little tighter. They use an alternator that bolts forward and backwards, and it's actually about an inch narrower. So it has the same belt and everything, but it tucks in a little tighter, and that's actually what I used on my truck. It's down low. So it sits down low, just like a Hellcat. But it sits down low, and I didn't have to. Everybody else who'd used Hemi and a Dakota had to cut the frame. They had to put a notch in the frame. And so if you're into a situation like a B body or an A body, and you have a car timing cover, and you're you need an extra inch because it's going to hit that frame rail. I see a bunch of people that are cutting these. Try the Jeep alternator, because it is an inch narrower. It tucks in a little tighter, and it will clear. Yes?
Yeah, before next we did, the Jeep alternator cleared everything fine.
Okay, it's confirmed.
Customer who he wanted air conditioning.
Okay.
So the air conditioner compressor causes a bunch of headaches. We had to lop off the extra mounting boss off the back of the compressor to clear the keg. We had to notch the keg slightly. Of course, we found this out after we already set the motor in, the headers were in, and so we got very creative with body saws. If we mocked it up outside the car, we would have saved probably a day's worth of work. And to get the air conditioner lines on there, Vintage Air makes adapters that will bolt directly to the factory compressor, and then you can use threaded lines and make your own lines. You don't have
I've seen those actually.
They work beautiful.
So you can use a factory air compressor, and it'll put on an AN fitting, right?
Yep, and we put it in with his Vintage Air box and
There you
all
go.
that, and the car is cool as a cucumber, and it might even be here. I don't know.
I'll probably do that on that, because I'd like air conditioning after today. Anybody else? Huh? Okay, we could walk out, and if anybody has any questions, we can look at the applications.
Thank you.